We're glad you made it. Pull up a chair. Pull up a chair. This is where your faith gets activated. Hey!
From your car right to your kitchen, from the office to your street. If you're tired, if you're searching, there's a welcome at the seat. Got some laughter, got some truth, got a fire we can't contain. Sit down like family, leave standing up change, oh yeah. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit, where the real talk meets the word, where your story meets his promise, every heart, every hurt. Cheryl and James say, come on, let your hope rise, sing, let it live. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit. It's your midweek Sunday gift. Hey, hey. Bring your questions, bring your scars, bring the things.
Welcome to the Porch and the Full, where faith and community come together as one.
And I'm
I'm
James.
Cheryl.
Pull up a chair and join us for this next exciting episode of The Porch and the Pulpit. Cheryl, what's going on? What's
Yeah.
going on? What are we talking about today? What's happening?
Well, everything's going fine on this end. So yesterday, our nation celebrated the 4th of July holiday, and it was 250 years of America's independence. So we thought that we would have a discussion about the 4th of July holiday and also the Juneteenth holiday. So before we get into the nitty gritty of both and get into a little history of things, I just wanted to put out a disclaimer out, out there on this topic. Yes, I just wanted to put out a disclaimer. You know, this is again our views and and things that we feel on this. And again, the purpose of a podcast is that you can have open dialogue and discussion about different things. And also, I have a personal feeling, and I think James has a feeling as well, that if you don't have discussions about things and you don't know the history of things, then you're doomed to repeat it. So you have to be able to put things out there for people so that they, again, can know, the facts. No matter how much you try to erase things, a fact is a fact. You can't go in and go back and erase a fact. Okay, it is a fact. Exactly. It happened. So we need to discuss it again so that we don't go into next generation after generation making the same mistake. And we have been doing that, up until now.
Again.
So again, this is yeah. So right now, this is a forum for us to have open discussion and dialogue, and and again, you can voice your opinion as much as you want to, as long as you be respectful when you post your opinion about it. So
I've always said, you can speak your mind, but just be respectful because, just don't come to me like that because,
right,
you don't want to do that. That's
right,
not what we're here for.
exactly,
That's not what we're here for.
right, exactly. Exactly. So, James is gonna lead this discussion today, and I'm just gonna come in with my few comments here and there. So, yeah. So this is about July 4th through the eyes of Black America. So, James, I'm gonna throw it in your court so you can get
Okay, thank you,
started.
Cheryl. I'm glad you put out the disclaimer because the, the truth is, bottom line of it is, there is so much truth out there, but it's also convoluted with lies, misconception, conspiracy theories, and just the plain simple, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I wasn't there. It ain't my problem. It's not my problem. But it's history. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it, especially if it's a history that puts things in a negative light. Okay. So we're talking about the United States of America, right? Now, in of itself, when you look at America, in of itself, America's a great country, great country. A lot, the land opportunity, and you can do things here in this country that you cannot do in other countries. In other countries, that's a fact. That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Okay, but on the other hand,
Right.
when you look at the history, how did the United States of America come to be? Okay, from its inception up until now. Okay, what what's the story? What happened? Okay, and when we look at history, we find that the history of America is filled with atrocity, atrocity. Okay, racism. Okay, and this is
Right.
manufactured and intentional systemic racism. Okay, um,
Yes.
perpetrated by people who, and some people may or may not agree with this, but it's historical fact. Stolen land. Okay, from you go back to
Right.
Columbus and his discovery of America. He was on his way to, I believe it was Asia, and history says he got lost. He wound up in what we
Mm-hmm.
now call America. It's in the books. Okay, so excuse me. This is why it's important to read and to know your history. And if your history wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to take it away from you right now. If history wasn't important,
Right.
so without dragging it out, just giving some bullet points. Discovery of America and the colonization of America. Okay, through Great Britain. And they came in and they basically stole this land from the inhabitants who were here for decades. For decades.
Mm.
Okay, you have the indigenous people, and there were also people of color here at the same time. Okay, the original land owners. Okay, and that were put here by our Creator. And we're going to get to that part when we talk about the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving
Mm-hmm.
on from that, Great Britain, according to what I researched, they had a history of going from country to country and taking over land. So this is no
Mm-hmm.
different. So when they did this, they took over the land. They had to find someone to cultivate and build this land. So they went to Africa, the continent of
Right.
Africa, and brought
Mm-hmm.
back people on ships, what we call slave ships, and they started to enslave Africans to build up a stolen land. Okay,
Right.
um, that is called, in effect, the transatlantic slave trade, to where they were transporting
Right.
slaves um, across from Africa to what we now call America. And they began to
Right.
build this country on the back of Africans. Okay? Everything that's in this country up until now has African or Black American origin. There is nothing, and I repeat, nothing that was made, built, or created that was done by white Europeans in this country. Not one thing. Not one thing. If you do the research properly, you find that every invention that a black man has made has been stolen by European white people. Everything. Okay? And even from the houses that they lived in during slavery to the White House was built by slaves, black people, everything. Okay?
Right.
just to speed it up or fast forward just a little bit, even the little things that we take for granted were invented by black people. We wouldn't be able to comb our hair, shave, bathe, wash our clothes, eat safe foods, okay, if it wasn't for black people. A black man invented the refrigerator, okay?
Right.
It's the cooling system, okay? All these things were created by black people. And then what they do is they try to strip our history and our legacy and make it their own. That's their modus operandi. That's what they do. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing, and
Right.
that's what they're doing now. So let's fast forward just a little. Okay, let's
Well,
forward.
wait. Let's not
Let's take a
fast forward
pause,
too
and we can
fast.
talk about that. So, what you got?
Okay, so I wanted to go into a little history, so a little about what you talked about so far. So the transatlantic slave trade. I just want to put it out there some the factual
Hmm.
information about the transatlantic slave trade was the forced transportation of millions of Africans across the Atlantic Ocean between the 1500s and the 1800s. So I want to put that up there. So the three legs of the triangle was Europe
Hmm.
to Africa. And European ships carried guns, cloth, alcohol, metal goods. These were traded for captive
Hmm.
Africans. So we have that, and that historians, sorry, estimate that about 12.5 million Africans were forced into slave ships, and roughly 10.7 million survived the journey to the Americas. Millions more died during raids, forced marches to the coast, or during the voyage itself. So I wanted to give some factual information. And when you talked about everything that we had our hands in, again, that's so funny because you talked about the
Hmm.
the White House, the one thing that we have that's so big as in the White House. And yet there was actual this week a news reporter the went and she found one of the ancestors of one of the one of the
Right.
slave people
That built
who
up the White House. Yeah.
right who did the White House,
Hmm.
who worked out right to help build the White House. So exactly, they didn't even build the White House. It was built, and they had their hands, and we had our hands
Exactly.
in that as well. So I didn't want to skip over that part when we jumped ahead, because yes, this is again
It's
factual
factual information.
information.
And
News
yeah.
report, right? We'll look into it,
Hmm.
and we see that, yeah, news reporters, and like I said, the ancestors, they went through and dug up, went through her great 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 grandfather and got that information. It took them 2 years to find that information as her as an ancestor. And again, when you study and you look in your history, how many things that we have had our hands in, that James went over, and the minister James went over and he discussed about about from our hair to our clothes to washing our clothes and all of the things, and it just taking your time to get to know this information. So
No,
go ahead,
that's
James. I'm
fine because
sorry, I just wanted to give some
that
information.
is good information because we want to, when we're talking, we want to put facts. So that was an actual report that can be
Hmm.
verified through, I believe it was ABC News, and that's a
Right.
verified fact. And also, when you talked
Yes.
about the transatlantic slave trade and the goods that were going back and forth, once those 10 million people were forced to come here, they were put to work, in the field. And
Right.
they began to
Yep.
produce goods that were actually taken from the Americas back to Europe. So everything was going it went from Africa to the Americas to from the Americas to Europe. Okay? because mind you, this is where it began. Europe, Great Britain at the time, coming in and colonizing what we now know to be America. And amongst these goods, and this goes to solidify what I'm talking about, there's nothing that was made in America if it wasn't made by black people. Okay, those enslaved people.
Right.
Um, they carried goods back that were made by slaves, right? There was cotton. If you know about the cotton, every time you look at a movie or a picture about slavery, they always in the cotton field,
Right.
right? They're in the cotton field so
They're
much you
always in the
forget about
cotton
everything
field.
else
Yes.
that they would do. Okay, so you know what I mean? Because that's
Right.
the narration that they want to give. Oh, we just picked cotton. No, we did so much more. Okay, they had cotton, they had
Yes.
sugarcane, tobacco, molasses, coffee. Okay, all of these things were
Yes.
planted, tilled, and worked by slaves. Okay, our
Yes.
ancestral line. Okay, and these goods were taken from America back to Europe, so they were profiting off of the back of slaves. Sound familiar? They profit off of
Yes.
our labor. They steal our culture
Right.
and call it and
Mhm.
claim it as their own. So now, when you move from the transatlantic slave trade, you come into what we now call, and most people are more familiar with, chattel slavery. And that simply
Right.
is European slave owners owned you. They owned you as property. Okay? They looked at you as if you were livestock. And they traded people, living, breathing people, back in. They sold slaves from one owner to the next, to the next, to the next, based on attributes. If you go down, I wish I had a picture of it. There's a sign that says they have where a posting that said slave for sale, and they gave the attributes of whom they was of the slaves they were selling, whether it would be good cooks, good workers in the good field workers, et cetera, et cetera. So they were basically trading human beings for money. And on top of that,
Mhm.
the slaves became hereditary. So if your grandfather owned the slave,
Mhm.
then his children owned the slave, then their children would own the slave. So it was generation,
Yes.
okay? Generation.
Mhm.
So
Right.
when you look, pardon me, when you look through all of this, right, and if it's generation, and it's fact that it was generation, the European white people who are in America today, because that's who they are, and they need to come to grips with, okay, are direct descendants from European slave owners. Everything that they have was stolen. Their legacy and everything. So, you know, we could take a pause. You could talk about that, or I could just keep chugging right along.
You chug right
Okay.
along.
So now we come through chattel slavery. You know, now we're going to work our way up to. We're going to talk about. Let's talk about Independence Day first, because we talked about
Right.
slavery and chattel slavery. So now time goes on,
Right.
and we are slaves still. Our ancestors, they're still in the fields, and we still building America. All right, we're still building America.
Right.
People who look like you and I are still building America. So as time goes on, and uh,
Mhm.
situations and ideas change, north and south.
Mhm.
They start bickering about,
Right.
they say it's about money, but money is also, it's the catalyst. But the bottom line of it is, the slaves were bringing in money. ideas and mindsets started to change, right? And some people wanted to break free from European rule because of the taxes and the taxation without representation and all this stuff, right? And also,
Right.
it was the question,
Right.
you know, the slaves are also involved in that thing too, and around that, right? So when you talk
Mhm.
about the independence,
Mhm.
let's take it one piece at a time. The independence was the Declaration of Independence basically is the United States of America breaking free from European rule. Okay,
Right.
separated. Those 13, bringing those 13 colonies saying, "Now we good. We want to be out. We're gonna make our own union." Okay, so that's what that was about. So they went to a war, and they fighting this civil war. Boom, 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 doing all this other stuff, and they got the Revolutionary War going on. I think the Revolutionary War and the Civil War was at two different times, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, we'll look at that. Don't quote me on it. But they fought this war
Mhm.
of independence. And they wanted to like this, become so. They say the North won, right? Who won the Civil War or the Rev? What is the what? I'm sorry, y'all. I don't want to get the fact. Just type that in for me. Was it the Civil War that led to independence, or was it the Revolutionary War?
So the American Civil War took place from 1861 to 1865. And the American War of Independence, what was called the Revolutionary War, took place in 1775 to
Okay, so that was prior to 1865. So I think some people.
Right. So the
Mhm.
American Civil War was yes, the exact dates was April 12th, 1861 to May 26th, 1865. And that was the United States, the Union, and the Confederate States, the
Right.
Confederacy. They were the ones. And the significance of that is they were fought primary over the
Hmm.
institution of slavery and
Right.
states' rights. It resulted in a Union victory and the abolition of slavery and the perseverance of the United States as a
Hmm.
single nation. Whereas the American War of Independence, which was April 19th, 1775, to September 3rd, 1783, and that was the 13 American colonies and Great Britain. And that was the significance of that was the armed conflict in which American colonies won their independence from British rule, leading to the creation of
That
the
was the
United
Revolutionary War.
States.
The prior in the So basically,
Uh, yes,
both wars, if you will, were the Civil and the Revolutionary War. Uh, they're kind of like them. It sounds like they kind of mirrored each other in the fight for independence for the 13 colonies and the slave owners, the abolishment of slavery. Right.
right. That
That
was
was
the
the American
American
Civil
Civil
War.
War.
With the American Civil War, you know, they were up in arms. The South was up in arms about because they wanted to keep slavery going. Because they were making money, they were being very profitable to them. The North, had other ideas. They was like, no, this is, they had other ideas. So basically, simply, they just came, and you just read it, they just came, the war started, and I'm just trying to put it in a way to where it's not crazy. But simply, it was just basically about over the slaves and freedom of the slaves, those types of things. And they broke free from that, and they gained their freedom through that discussion. Because it's like even with the stuff that you read, sometimes it gets a little bit confusing, and I don't want to confuse it even more. You know what I mean? By just, um,
Right.
but in a sense, there was the Civil War led to the freedom of the slave. After, I just want to make sure the facts are straight. I had it written down, but I can't find it. The Civil War led to the freedom of the slaves. Can't get it right. I can't put it in the head straight. I'm sorry. I don't want to put that out there like that, and it's not right. Let's see what we can find.
So yes, the Civil War was directly led to the ending of slavery in the United States. The war outcomes and key legislative steps abolished the institution nationwide. So the Emancipation and Proclamation in
Mhm.
1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued this wartime executive order freeing enslaved people, specifically in Confederate held territories. And then the 13th Amendment in 1865, ratified 8 months after the war ended. This constitutional amendment permanently abolished slavery and involuntary servitude throughout the entire
Mhm.
United States, except as a punishment of a
Okay,
crime.
so basically, all right, so that's how I want to kind of like simplify it because I think with me, just for me, is sometimes it gets with the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, it seems like they both running at the same time in my head. You know what I mean? That's just the way it seems.
Right.
Simply put, Civil War ended legal chattel slavery in America or the United States, right? And during that time, there was the Emancipation Proclamation came forth, and that was in 1863. So that was during that the Emancipation Proclamation came forward in the midst of a war, according to the timeline. So, and then once that war was over, the 13th Amendment had passed, and that abolished slavery across the board. Okay, so long story short, so with all of that happening, they were fighting they were fighting for the freedom of the slaves and the freedom of the slaves. Abraham Lincoln signed it into law that this was to take place through the Emancipation Proclamation. Boom. So now we get to the point to where the 13th Amendment comes in, and that comes in and it's ratified, it becomes law, it's written, boom, we're free. All right. So now, prior to that, now let's roll it back. 1776. That's 1776 is where the Declaration of Independence took place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, during 1776, we were still slaves. So even though America, the colonies, declared their independence from Great Britain's rule, it didn't do nothing for us. It didn't do anything for
Right.
us because we were still enslaved. We were still enslaved. It did nothing for us during that time, but we were still enslaved. So when we talk about July 4th and of itself or Independence Day, it really has no effect on black people. It really doesn't. Because at the time, our ancestors were not free. We were still enslaved. We were still building
Mm.
America. From 17, from the time, look at the timeline. From 1776 to 1865. That's what, 90 plus years? That's like 90 plus years. We were still enslaved during that entire time. It wasn't until 1865 that we were fully free. And even at that time, so now it's like when we ask the question, Should we celebrate July 4th, Independence Day? Does it, what is it, does it have any significant meaning for us? And I think if you look at it,
Right.
to answer that question, um, Senator Douglas, he asked the question, what does the 4th of July or means to the slave? What does it mean to the slave? Right? And in a sense, he
Mm-hmm.
broke it down, just basically said, listen, during that time, it basically means nothing to us because it didn't affect us. We were still enslaved. We were still being beaten. We were still being traded. We were still being ostracized. We weren't included in that independence. So the 4th of July in
Right.
and of itself holds no significant meaning to to a black man, to us. If we look at it from that point of view.
Right. Right. So when I just wanted to interject that when because you have on your shirt about July 4th and Juneteenth. So when when we talk about these dates and the and everything about the 4th of July celebration and for America, and then Juneteenth with which African Americans, recognize. Juneteenth commemorates June 19, 1865, the day the Union federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to enforce the Emancipation Proclamation and ensure all remaining enslaved people were freed.
Right. Hmm.
Right. So, yes, the event took place 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, because Texas was the most remote Confederate state, and the proclamation had gone largely unenforced there until the Union Army arrived
Right.
to take
So
control.
they said it was about so it was about 20,000 soldiers had to go up and let them know that this had taken place because they were still, in the throes of slavery. No one knew. No one knew. And just to simplify it,
Yeah.
because
Right.
again, I don't want to make things too complicated. You know what I mean? Just to say, I'm just looking at it like this: July 4th, 1776 was for them, before the European white folks. It was for them. That was their freedom. We had nothing to do with that. Even though the first person to die in the Civil War was a black man named Christmas Attucks. Okay? You see how they use us to get what they need. You understand? So we fought in the wars in order for them to get what they need. In order for them to get what they need. Okay, so simply put, 1776, and this date, July 4th, that was for that. June 19, 1865, that's for us. Because that's when we were free from the tyranny, on paper at least, from slavery.
Right.
So that's what we celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we celebrate. That's what we identify with. So now when you get down to brass tacks, and you're like, well, should I celebrate the 4th of July? Should I celebrate a Juneteenth? I look at it like this: you can celebrate both. You can celebrate one, and you can celebrate none. But I look at it like, if you do celebrate the
Right.
4th, and you do celebrate Independence Day, realize this as a black person, as Black Americans, we understand that we have to hold them accountable. Because this is what Martin Luther King and Frederick Douglass and the abolitionists were doing. We have to continue to hold them to task, to hold them to task of what that Declaration of Independence said. We got to hold them
Right.
accountable to that. Okay? Okay, they said,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in order to form a one perfect union that all men are created equal, we got to hold them to that. Okay, we gotta hold them to that fact. Okay, and because yes, even though by law, legal decree, we are free. Okay, and y'all America received its independence from European rule, but no, but the Declaration of Independence is not being adhered to. It's not being um, applied across the board. Because even though you say on paper all men are created equal, in your eyes, are we really? Because if we were,
Right.
we wouldn't be faced with the atrocity from then to now. Okay, because it's like we're living
Exactly.
in a hangover state from what was done to us down through our ancestral line.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
celebrate. You can hold them accountable. Hold them accountable.
Right. Right. So when you talk about the Declaration of Independence and the part that we talk about, um, first, the section that you're talking about, it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain
Hmm.
unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the
Come on
pursuit of
now.
happiness."
Come on.
And that's where it says, yeah. So when you say that as African Americans, many of us reflect on more a complicated history, because again, when they said we were free, we still weren't free.
Yeah, and that's it. And,
So
and
we
that's the thing. See
still
now,
had to wait,
there you go. There you go.
right?
So we're gonna break it down. See, we got off a little to a rough start in the beginning, but now we're gonna start smooth sailing. Check this out. Read that latter part. Where it said about the pursuit of happiness. What it say? What read that
Right.
again?
So it says right. It's so that whole section says, "We hold these truths to be evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty,
Check this
and the
out.
pursuit of happiness."
According to that portion, that paragraph you just read, when they talk about endowed by the Creator, they are talking about God. Now, if I'm looking from
Mm,
my perspective as a Christian, and God gave me
mm-hmm.
unalienable right to the pursuit of life and happiness, liberty. Liberty is
Liberty.
freedom.
Yes.
Liberty
Yes.
is
And,
freedom.
right.
Okay?
Exactly.
The
Right. Right.
4th of July, Independence Day is freedom, celebrating freedom, right? Come on with me now.
Right.
It's
Yes.
celebrating freedom
Yes.
from British rule, right? Juneteenth
Right.
is
Mhm.
celebrating freedom from slavery, okay?
Yes.
In the pursuit of happiness, right? Who is preventing us or holding us up in that pursuit?
Nobody but God.
Yeah. Who's holding us up?
Mhm.
Who's
Right.
standing in the way of that pursuit of happiness? Those slave owners, those systemic racists, those folks who seek
Right, those
to
right.
steal, kill, and
Yeah.
destroy. Okay, that's why we call them.
Right.
That's why we call them devils, because they seek to steal,
Mhm.
kill, and destroy. That's what they do. So they stand and they write this
Right.
down. They wrote it down. You seen it. You read it. They quote it, but they
Mhm.
don't live by it. Now, when it comes to us, because until we, and this is probably never ever going to stop, Because as long as the United
Right.
States of America exists in the condition that it is in right now, and Black Americans and people of color and people who don't look like them are always going to be experiencing a first. You know what a first is? A first is the first Black president, the first Miss America, the first male, Black
Right.
male or female to win an Oscar. Okay, we still experiencing first because we are so far behind. They got a 250-year head start at a minimum. That's the minimum. That's not even counting 400 years of slavery. Okay? But
Right.
at a minimum, 250 years. Let me break it down for you like this. You know, Pastor Frederick K. Price. That is not familiar to you?
Mm-hmm.
So he was the
Yes.
he's gone on to be with the Lord, but he did this series, right? I think he was the pastor of the West Angeles Church in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. But if you can look it up on YouTube, and it pops up around this time of the year, and it comes up periodically. So in a sense, he was breaking down Juneteenth. He was breaking down Independence Day because they kind of correlate together, right? So in a nutshell, what he was saying was that legally, and I'm just paraphrasing what he said. Legally, on paper, it was written down that we were free, right? And on our emancipation,
Right.
right, we were guaranteed something: 40 acres and a mule. Okay, Abraham Lincoln signed it,
Mm-hmm.
sealed it, delivered.
Right.
This is what we gonna get.
Mm-hmm.
What they do to Abraham Lincoln?
Right.
They assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Right? Fact check me. Fact check me.
Right.
Fact check me. Okay? They assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Right? The next president that came
Mm-hmm.
stripped all that away. Y'all ain't getting nothing. So essentially what the European Americans did was we were emancipated with nothing. And they had the audacity to tell us
Right.
to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We don't have no boots. You see what I'm saying? So they wanted us,
Right.
they gave us
Right.
emancipation, freedom, but they didn't give us the means to survive. But thanks be to God,
Exactly.
who always sees us through. See, what they fail to realize, though, is that no matter what they throw at us, no matter what obstacles that they put in the way of this pursuit of happiness, we always survive. We always come through.
Right.
No matter what they try to
Exactly.
do, no matter what they try to put down, because they keep going, they running out of, they're running out of new stuff to do. That's why they keep reverting back to the old stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right? It's the same thing, but it's a
Right.
different day. So, what my brother,
Yes.
Dr. Frederick K. Price said, and he gave this analogy, man, and it was great. He talked about Monopoly. You know the Monopoly game? So he said, everybody starts out with
Right.
$1,500, right? And they go around the board and they're trying to buy property and make money, live, right? And every so often you pass go, you get a little $200 and stuff like that there, right? So what he did, he said that he had played the game
Right.
of Monopoly, but the only thing was he didn't take the $1,500. He didn't take the $1,500. He wanted to be in the position that we were in
Okay.
when we were emancipated with nothing. So
Right.
basically, he said he went around the board a few times, and he managed to get around the board a few times, but he wasn't able to find nothing,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to sell nothing because he didn't have any money. He didn't have he didn't have no capital. So he said, how do you expect us to survive in monopoly, and everybody started with $1,500 and I started with nothing? How can I survive? They did not want us to survive. They set it up so
Right.
that even if we committed crimes while being free, the penalty was to go back to the field. Okay? So in fact, if they made whatever law you broke, you're going back to master. That's how it's orchestrated. That's how it is today. You know, they put you in a position to where you can't survive. And when you can't survive, you do anything to survive. So
Right.
they're standing, they put it on paper,
Right.
they write it down, they be like, yeah, all men are created equal. Wasn't it?
So when we talk about the 40 acres and a mule, to give the little facts, because we want to go into the facts, the 40 acres and a mule was a promise made by the U.S. government to newly freed Black families after the Civil War, but it was quickly broken and the land was taken
Mm-hmm.
back. So the origins of the policy was in January 1865, and they asked the leaders what they needed to secure their freedom, and they said land to cultivate, right? So then 4 days later, General Sherman issued his military order for the 400,000 acre strip of coastline stretching from Charleston, South Carolina, down through
Mm-hmm.
Georgia to Florida. And then the land was ordered to be broken up into 40-acre plots for roughly 40,000 newly freed individuals. And then the mules, while mules were not in the official order, the Union Army later lent surplus Army mules to the settlers, to help them plow the land. Well, the reversal happened, why it failed, because of course, like you said, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in late 1865, and his successor, which was Andrew Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
overturned the order, and because Johnson sympathized
Mm-hmm.
with the South and gave the land back to the original white
Come on.
Confederate
Yep.
owners. And then
Mm-hmm.
eviction happened. The federal troops forced tens of thousands of Black families off the land they had already settled, built homes, and
See?
started farming. So we gave
Mm-hmm.
something, and we gave it, said we were going to give it to them. And then what happened? It was
That's that.
snatched back. Snatched back. And it says, right, without land or capital, most former slaves were forced into sharecropping, a system of farming that locked them into cycles of permanent debt
Mm-hmm.
and
And
poverty.
that was, see, that's the beginning of the cycle of oppression that they put Black people through that we are still experiencing today. It's systemic. It's historical.
Yes.
And it cannot be denied
Yeah.
because it's fact. Okay? You are ignorant somebody when you
Right.
ignore facts in your right in your face. That's if you don't see that means you don't get whatever. But that's systemic, historical oppression of Black people through the ancestral line. Okay? So when you talk about that historical fact, all that is history. All that is history. So that Declaration of Independence is not applicable across the board to us. They'll dangle something in front of us and then snatch it right back. That's what they do. Okay?
That
But
shit right back.
but we are people,
Right.
we are the original people of God. And God had listen, he said his word, no weapon formed against us will prosper. Okay? And I believe that this is the word, these are the words that we stood on. Our ancestors stood on in order to survive, in order to make it
Right.
through. Because, through history, we're survivors through history and time. Okay? Every time we built up
Right.
and it felt like we were moving, advancing too fast, they destroyed everything we had. But
Right.
we rebuilt from the ashes because that's who we are. Okay, that's embedded in us.
Right.
Why do you think they came and brought our ancestors from Africa to build this land? Because they knew what we were capable of. Okay, they knew. They knew the history of our people.
Right.
Okay, and we developed and we cultured and we built this nation.
Right.
All men are created equal. Okay, yeah. All men are pursuit of happiness, liberty, freedom. Okay, so now we free now. That's why I said, you know what?
Mhm.
July 4th, Juneteenth, hey, freedom for the nation, freedom for the people. Okay?
Right.
So now, when we celebrate America, let's talk about July 4th. You got time to talk about July 4th? You got time to talk. What's July 4th? What's that about? What is that? What are we really celebrating here? Okay, because, it's like you celebrating 250 years of American independence from European rule. I understand that. But what was America doing over these 250 years of existence? For 246 of those years, they were oppressing black people. They're still
Right.
oppressing black people. And the only reason why you
Right.
hear an outcry or a pushback about what's going on now is because they're now being affected by it. When it was just
Mhm.
us, it was fine. When it was just us suffering, when it was just us going through,
Right.
but when it got but when they got a little when the government, and I'm saying like this, got too big, and they started like, oh, we can do whatever we want, do whatever we want. It started affecting them. Now they be like, oh well, maybe we should, uh, you know, switch things up a little bit. So that's
Right.
why they created all these programs, right, to
Right.
help those who were
Right.
oppressed. Okay, to help those who were going, through difficulty.
Right.
Okay, and who were the first partakers of
Right.
all those programs? They were.
They were.
They were.
Right.
Factually,
Right.
if you look at
Exactly.
the EBT and the SNAP and the food stamps, depending on what area you lived in at that time,
Mhm.
European white folks, the biggest partakers of all self
Right.
help, of all, not self help, of all programs that were created to help poor people. They
Right.
were first partakers
Exactly.
in 200, this history of America. Okay, let's simplify it. We can
Mhm.
bring it up to date a little bit. Like NYCHA, public housing throughout the world, throughout America, right? NYCHA to Cabrini Green, all the housing projects, that entire program. That wasn't for us when it first started. That was for
Right.
middle income, low income white folks. Because yes, there are middle income, low income white folks out there. That was for them. That wasn't for
Right.
us initially. Okay? redlining. Okay, because you want to talk about, they want us to be champions, for America and what America does. Now, mind you, I said in the beginning, America overall, great country. But when you go beyond the surface, it's a lot of crap going on. You know what I mean? So when black folks wanted to buy
Right.
homes in prominent neighborhoods, they were redlined. They were priced out. Okay, you couldn't go in certain areas, couldn't buy in certain areas. And if you were lucky enough or blessed enough to get into those neighborhoods, they charge you way more than they would do a European white person. Okay? And this is
Right.
1974 or 75.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm 59 years old, so that's probably around 55 years ago. That's not a long time ago.
Right.
So this systemic oppression, systemic racism, they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about what's
Right.
good
We
in
have
America,
this
but they would be hard pressed to tell you what's good. If you ask them, listen, European white man, what's good about America?
it's all the
It's
freedoms
all the
that they
freedoms that they
have, not
have.
so much what everybody
So
else
the
have.
same freedoms that y'all, I can't
Right.
get that. I can't do half of the stuff
Right.
okay? 1964, Voting Rights Act passed. 64, less than 60 years ago. No, that's a little bit more than 60 years ago. 61 years ago. Okay, we couldn't vote. We couldn't vote 61 years ago. We had the right to vote. When did the voting rights pass? 64, 65?
The voter hold on. Yes, August 6,
Okay,
1965.
so I'm 59. I was born in 67, so just put the 2 years on that, 61 years ago. Right? Prior to that, we couldn't vote.
Right.
We could not vote. So 19, we didn't have the freedom. See,
Right.
they go that word again.
Freedom.
But yet in the Declaration of
Correct.
Independence, 1776, they talked about liberty. But we couldn't vote. We couldn't buy houses. We had a hard time.
Right.
You know
And
what
we
I'm saying?
still
Couldn't do nothing. Freedom. Oh.
right.
And now,
Right. Right.
man,
And right. And in this day and time, we still have issues with
yeah,
voting.
yeah.
We still have issues that they're trying to redistrict so that we
They're still
still
trying
can't vote.
to basically ostracize us and get us frustrated to the point to where we say that heck
Yeah,
with
so
it.
that we don't vote.
Even if I could vote, I'm not going to
Right.
vote. That's what they would say. That's what they want us to say. And sadly, some of us have
Exactly.
fallen into
Right.
that mentality, and we need to come up from out of that. Because if it wasn't so important,
Right.
why would they seek to strip it from us?
Exactly. They've been going to the part of where they're not even naming what party you're voting for. They just want the names on a paper, and then thinking that because the names are just on the paper, we won't do the research of finding out exactly who's
Exactly.
running for what, so that we can then go and
So they
vote.
basically got
Yeah.
John Doe, Jane Doe, no affiliation to party. So now I look at it like this. Okay, so
Right.
y'all want to play that game? Y'all want to play the I don't know what party I'm voting for game? Do away with the whole thing. No Republican Party. No Democratic Party. Get
Right.
rid of that. Get rid of the Electoral College, because the Electoral College is slave based. Get rid of all that. And I'm gonna throw this in for free, being that we're talking about election, right? But this all goes into this whole freedom thing. Do you know? And you might know this because you might know this. Do you know that in the early political system, it was called the Democratic Republican Party. It was one party. It was one party up until such a
Did
time
not know that.
that slavery was a
Mm-hmm.
violence. No, they said we started getting the violence, right? And then there started being a turnaround, switch around,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when those
Mm-hmm.
they separate. They were all one party at one time.
Wow.
Then it flipped and switched, and
Okay.
split. It has split. So if you want to do it, if you want to play that
Right.
game, because I see what you're talking about. On the ballot, it just has the name, no party affiliation. Get rid of it altogether. Let's see how that works for you. It's like they're trying to rewrite
Right.
the same thing, and keep and they want to keep us so oppressed, but at the same time they're oppressing their own people. The ones that look like them are being oppressed. Okay, that's why you see some. That's why you see some pushback against certain things because now wait a minute, you're affecting my base. Now I need my base in order to stay elected. So you can't you can't go but so far. You know, and then they're finding out now that oh y'all been lied to, huh? Everything that you put in place, this freedom and all this other stuff like that, you stripping away all of these types of things and programs and stuff. This is affecting me and mine. Because, like I said, who were the first partakers of these programs? They were.
They were.
Okay, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
they talk about freedom and liberty. Okay, but they're the main
Right.
ones oppressing people. That's how the devil is. The devil do too much. Do too much.
Right. So when we talk about, right. So when we get to the point of that, because this is the porch and the pulpit, so I want to reel it back in a little bit and get to the next part of the bringing the pulpit into this. And James and I had a discussion and we talked about, how we say America is built on Christianity and some of and for us to say that America is built on Christianity is also a discussion in itself. But we looked up because I wanted to see, are we as Black people and also as other uh cultures, and they have religion is a very much a big part of America and other countries as well. And again, when we talk about slavery, that could be its own topic of who Black people and their Christianity, we use song music was a way to get us through moaning, when church started, us going to church. And it's been plenty of discussions on that. But we're not going to get into all of those various discussions, but I want to talk about what the word of God says in reference to, this whole topic. So we looked up in one of the scriptures that we wanted to look into was Genesis 1:27. And it's so, and Genesis 1:27 says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So we are all created in God's image. So we are talking about, we are America and everything. We all have to remember that if we all, it didn't say some of us, it didn't say,
We
we all are
all of us
created in
are
God's
created in.
image. We all of us are. So, when we talk about, the separation and everything that is going on today, and we look at the word of God, the word of God is not about separation. It's about bringing us
Mhm.
all together. Um, Another scripture that we have is Galatians, and in Galatians
Mhm.
3:28, there are neither Jew
Right.
nor Greek, there is neither slave
Mhm.
nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all
Well, one in
one
Christ
in
Jesus. So
Christ
those
Jesus.
two scriptures together, basically what you just said, talks about unity. Everybody being one. Okay, there's no black, there's no white, there's
Right.
no red, green, purple, brown. And we're all members of the human race. Okay? The only thing that
Yes.
the only difference, if you want to call it a difference, is male and female. That's it. That's where the line is
Yes.
starts and ends. The Bible says male and female he created. He didn't say black
Right.
male, he didn't say white male, he didn't say Puerto Rican, Mexican, he didn't say none of that. Okay?
Right.
And then the fact that I moderate Mexican, those are all like cultures and stuff like that. But he didn't, there was no color line. There was no
There was
color
no
line.
color.
Listen, we're all
Exactly.
one in his image. So whatever God is to you, whatever,
Exactly.
that's him. Okay? So he didn't
Right.
mention color.
Right.
Who brought in color?
Mhm.
Who brought up this division?
Exactly.
Whose great idea was that?
Exactly. And not only r- right, and not only are we breaking the division when it comes to color, we also have the division when it comes to finances. So we go over to Galatians, I mean, yes, Proverbs 22:2. The Bible also talks about the rich and the poor have this in common. The Lord is the maker of them
Exactly.
all. So whether
Then
you
come
have
on.
money or don't have money, he's the maker.
Listen, it
Yes,
don't
he is
matter
the
how much
maker
you can
of them
have
all.
all the
So,
money in the world.
okay.
Okay? And the Bible also says, what does it
Yes.
profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? So you can have all the
Well, yeah,
money. When God
that's
see
right.
you, he ain't looking at your money. And your money is not going to give you the
Yes.
prestige
Right.
that you would need, because prestige is not going to get you in the heaven. It's not going to get you in the good graces with God. Okay? All right?
That's right.
So you want to be poor, you want to be meek, you know what I mean? So, and the thing is, God,
Mhm.
he looks more on, he doesn't favor one or the over the other, but he has a heart for poor people. Okay? For those who are destitute, those who are in need.
Yes.
If you have money, you don't need nothing. What you need when you got money? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
when you poor and you're standing in need, then God expects those who have more to help those who have less. Okay? Biblically, that's what God wants. So if
Mhm.
we're saying, and I'm gonna go there for 2 seconds, and I'm not gonna dive deep, but I'm gonna go there for 2 seconds. If we're saying that we are a Christian nation, and we're not, because a Christian nation don't do all the stuff that we do as America,
Mhm.
we don't, you know what I'm saying? Because and we can't be a Christian nation in that sense. So and we want to use the Bible as a basis that we live by, and we can't, we don't even honor it. So anyway,
Mhm.
rich people, if you have more, you should be helping out those with less. Okay,
Right.
that's basically what that is. But we're not doing that.
That's what
That's what
that's what
Christianity is.
Christianity looks
You
like.
helping folks. You're
That's
not
what this
stripping away
right,
what
exactly.
little they have. You know, you don't give
Right.
nobody a loaf of bread and you take half of it. You don't do. It's not right.
Right. Right. Right. All through the Bible, Jesus modeled while he was here on earth modeled what it looks like to be a Christian, giving to the poor, taking care of the sick, and all of that. So when we talk about America and the makeup of America and looking, are we doing that? Is the question. Are we modeling that? Are we modeling that to other people? We're quick to get into other countries and what they're doing. I always say take care of your home first, yes, while before
And
you
that's
go and
it.
get
There's
into
a
other people's
song.
business. And we in
Yeah,
other people's business and don't even take
exactly.
care of home.
There's a song.
But it doesn't mean making
It
things
don't. It
great
don't.
again.
What
It
does
means
that mean?
it means getting
What does that
getting
mean?
right. It means getting right what you
Listen,
messed up.
you need to sweep around your own front door before you go talk about somebody else's thing and try to police the whole world and this, that, whatever. What?
Exactly.
So all that is this monetary gain. You
Exactly.
seeking. See, let me tell you, forget all that. What they're doing is they're practicing the model of their ancestors, the Europeans. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
I'm
I'm gonna take what's
taking what's
yours. Right.
yours
I like
and
what
I'm
you
gonna
got.
claim it
I
as
want it.
mine. And if anybody
Yes.
disagree with it, they're communists. Okay, if you want to feed the
Yes.
poor, you want to
Exactly.
house the homeless, you a communist. But we Christian nation. No, you're not. You're not.
Mhm. Right. Right.
You are not. No, there's no way you can say that. I, the Bible, if you, the least you give of somebody a cup of water in my name, that's the least you doing the same thing to Christ. You snatching the water, the bucket, the pipes, the cups, everything. Okay? And you're like, oh yeah, yeah, you're gonna make America great again. For who? The rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, and that's
Right. And for the poor.
250 years of the same old, same old. Now, don't get me wrong. We as black people, we did make some progressive, hard fought ones,
Mhm.
but now they're being undermined and challenged
Yes.
and taken away. And that's not biblical.
Right. Right.
That's not God. That's not God. That's not Christ-like. Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yes, you love yourself.
Now,
Yep, that's right.
if what's going on right now, generally, you must hate yourself real bad to do the stuff you're doing to your neighbor. Because if you really love yourself, you wouldn't treat your neighbor that way. Right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Exactly.
So if you don't love yourself, you're going to treat your neighbor like crap. You don't care nothing about him either.
Right. Exactly.
But you'll go over there and snatch everything he
Exactly.
got. That's what they do.
Yep.
But,
And that's what
long
they
story
do.
short, this America, and it's a whole, we gotta do better. We gotta do better.
Mm.
We really gotta do better
Right.
because, you know, as hard as they try to fight to get us out, and you have people telling us to go back to Africa, to go back home, go back where you came from. I could say I could tell them the same thing. Go back where you came from, because you
You
brought
brought
us
us
here.
here. Now you want to send us back.
Okay, and truth be told, factually and historically speaking, I have more of a right being here than you do, because 9 times out of 10, my ancestral line was here before you were. Because mind you,
Right.
there were black folk here when Columbus came. There's a book called They
Right.
Came Before Columbus that details it. So my ancestral line was probably here, more likely than yours was. So
Right.
no, but I digress. We ain't going
Yes.
nowhere, okay? But
Right.
on the whole, America and of itself is a great country. We have a lot of opportunities and things like that. But when it comes down to obtaining those things, we as Black Americans have a harder way to go than those European Americans. You know what I mean? They
Exactly.
that's the privilege that they have. You know what I mean? They get it, and they don't have to work so hard for it. Okay, I want to buy a house. I got we got to I got to have X amount of money. I got to be better. I got to work harder. I got to put in
Right.
but we just got to do
Right.
better. We got to hold their feet to the fire. We have to. If you don't like the way things are going right now, Cheryl, and you can tune in. You can jump on this too. November is coming. Be here sooner
Right.
than you think. And if you truly don't like what's going on, voice it at the phone. Don't sit home
Right.
and fall for the okey doke. Nothing gonna change. Nothing gonna change. Nothing gonna change. Nothing gonna change. If you don't like what's going on, go out and vote, because those are the lawmakers that are making those are the lawmakers that are making things hard for people, and they can make things easy for people. If you don't hold them accountable,
Exactly. Right. Then you can't sit there and complain about
that's it.
change.
You
If you
got to
don't
hold them
hold people
accountable,
accountable and
and
you
I don't
don't
care
go out
who's
there
in
and
the
make
office. You got to hold
right.
them accountable.
Exactly. So as we end today's conversation, I just wanted to say that today's conversation isn't about making anyone feel guilty or ashamed. It's about understanding our history so that we can appreciate freedom more deeply, learn from the past, and grow together in truth. As Christians, we believe truth and love can exist in the same conversation. So as you get watch this podcast, again, we're not putting out there that, we don't love America. We live here. We live here. Where I have family members who fight for this country and for those freedoms for us to be able to live here. And so what we want is for America to do better. And as you say, and that gutter. And I told James and I had a conversation, because just a little bit, James and I had a conversation, and I told him, I said, as a culture, there are some of us who are very much into Juneteenth, and we talk about Juneteenth, and everything. And there are African Americans who actually celebrate Juneteenth. And I said, and there are some who, celebrate July 4th. I said, but as a community, as a whole, I think all of us are more into
Yeah, yeah,
barbecuing and getting
yeah,
together with our friends than
yeah, yeah.
actually
That's
celebrate
it.
either
And
one of
honestly,
the either one of the
I do
holidays.
believe that's what it is, because, like I said, John Paul come, they throw on the outfit, they barbecue it. They don't care nothing about no Declaration of Independence.
Yeah,
It's a day off.
exactly.
And you know what? I don't blame them,
Exactly. It's a
because
day
I
off
don't
for
blame us
work.
for that. Because when you look at it, we're going to sleep
Right.
anyway. That ain't the part of us. Oh,
Right.
you know what?
So
I like to do it. I got the nice, yeah. I'll barbecue and I'll shoot off some fireworks.
right.
You know what I mean? It is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That don't
exactly.
mean, but when it comes
Exactly.
down to brass tacks, I'm not.
Right. But whatever you're doing Right. Well, whatever you're doing on the day, just know, like I said, it's good to just know what the history is and what each day means. And you do what you
Yeah,
want to
just
do on that
do
day.
you. It's
So
up to
that was
you.
our
Do what you
purpose.
want to do.
Yes.
You got free will and
Right.
free reign to
Exactly.
do whatever you want to do. What we wanted to do with this is just to give some context and some facts, you know, as to what these
Right.
historical moments were about. You know, Independence Day and Juneteenth. And it, yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. And also because it is 250 years, and that was what the big celebration was because this is again a week after it's already happened. As we think about 250 years and where we are and where we used to be and where we want to be, again, we have to look at the history to see what happened back so that we don't then go back and repeat it. So
that's the
that's the
purpose.
purpose of this whole thing is to just go back so that we know going forward in those next 250 years, however long it is before the Lord come and get us. And however, we're here. Just know that we have a
Hmm.
responsibility. We have a responsibility while we're here to make sure that we all are on the same playing field, not some ahead and some behind. We all on the
All
same
of us.
playing field. So on that note, yes. So on that note, I just want to say God bless you. James and I would definitely like you to continue to tune in and give us comments on our podcast and share with your friends and of course join in and have a discussion on our Facebook pages, Instagram pages, the YouTube page. Give comments and things, so we would definitely like to
Yeah.
hear from you. So James, you have any
Yeah, I'm
closing?
pretty good. I just want to say, just keep do your due diligence, live your life, be respectful of others, and God bless America.
That's right. All righty, well, God bless and thank you for tuning in to the Porch and the Pulpit.
Bye.
You never say we've been broken, we've been healed, we've seen God make a way. So we're laughing, we're confessing, we're expecting something new. If He did it, then He'll do it right here, right now, for you.
Welcome to the porch and pulpit, where the real talk meets the word, where your story meets His promise, every heart, every hurt. Cheryl and James say, come on, where your faith rise. I feel it shift.
So we can see the shirt.